Good afternoon, Gino.
Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad.
Last time I saw you, I was bouncing about, going like a lunatic in some place in a mill.
I'm trying to import when the teachers to me door. Building the way to the door. Give me that down. I'm coming out to find your house.
And what's it, by the way, I do it. Please excuse me if I can't grab names first time. I've had a few strokes in my time, and some bits of memory have been wiped. I remember once having to turn around to a friend of mine, Dave Kirkwood, and said, "Oh, I'd have loved to have seen the Ramones." He said, "You saw them twice. I was with you." "Oh, have I seen Johnny Thunder?" "Of course you've seen Johnny Thunder. You went to his party." "Oh, did I?" So, anyway, so when the time came round, I heard something on the radio. I can't remember how old I'd have been, 15 or so. And it was Sheena Is a punk rocker.
Oh, right, yeah.
That changed everything. Like I say, it's quite an unpleasant time at school at the time because I was one of the few foreigners. There was the problems with the IRA, so I used to get clouted by both teachers and fellow pupils because they decided I was Irish that day.
Yeah.
If an Italian team had beaten an English team, I used to cop for that as well because I'd be Italian that day. Maybe quite tough, actually. Eventually, they couldn't contain me, and punk helped me with that. I met up with others that didn't give a damn about what your genetic lineage was or what side of the tracks you came from. There was basically because of the people my father worked with and what he did, and he worked very hard, so he had nice things, but the locals all decided he was a gangster, which you would usually think could offer you some protection, but it didn't. It just said, "Oh, look, a criminal. The criminal Italian-Irish IRA. All out there. The breeding, there's millions of them. You know, the woman's a witch." Which she was, actually, but so they weren't wrong.
Your mum was a famous witch.
Yeah, very famous. She taught me something fantastic. First gig I ever played was a youth club disco. We did a version of Really Free by John Ottaway and Wild Willie Barrett with me as John Ottaway and a few other things like that.
Is that why, like early on, you said you got to meet kindred spirits through punk?
Yeah.
Is that how you got to meet people through playing in bands at first? Or
Yeah,
did you...
well, was it basically what was exciting, fantastic. You don't see the tribalism. I don't think tribalism is ever a good thing, but in some ways it is when you're a young person, you're looking for an identity. I walked out, and what would make you look like a punk in those days? You, in those clothes you're wearing now,
Yeah.
would have stopped traffic. People would have stopped and looked at you. With
What, just the way I am?
Just the way you are
Got a
now.
mullet and-
Yeah. There they go. He's a punk.
Yeah.
What's it? Crew neck jumper, pin in it, and straight trousers would get you beat up. But what it'd also do, as you walk through town, you saw another one like that, you'd go up to them, all right, mate, and there's your instant friend. There was a brilliant thing, Virgin Records on Lever Street. You're familiar with Reckless Eric?
Yeah, I know that name, yeah.
He did a track at the time called A Whole Wide World.
Yeah.
So, and he was there giving away 12-inch singles and albums signed by him. Anyway, this was about 60 punk lads turned up in the tiny space that was Virgin Records. And so after a few minutes, people thought, we're going to start liberating the records here. The staff up a brave defence of the stock for a moment, and then went, hold on. And they started grabbing piles of albums and just handing them out to people. Eventually, I joined the Anti-Nazi League. And Come on, Brandolani, go and be honest about stuff, don't. I worry sometimes about what I'm going to say because we're also in a delicate world. I think I might have been a football hooligan at that time if football had had girls and music with it.
Well, the Anti-Nazi League, someone lent me a book on them, and a guy like Fen Benny, he did a podcast years ago, but they were quite violent, the Anti-Nazi League, weren't they?
Terrible. I didn't. This is absolute shame, but there's no point in being anything but honest, otherwise people see through a fake immediately. I'd go along, these would be trips out to miners' disputes, anything at all. And I never chucked a brick, I never laid a hand on anyone, but I was absolutely terrible because I was the one that would run up to the front going, there was a thing about, in the last days of school, the National Front, this was one of the only nice things I took from school, were actually they actually did it in Ashton, in a school in Ashton, because political parties at the time could use schools, the school hall, not during school time, but afterwards, to, to have public meetings, and the National Front were pushing this as a point. I don't think they actually wanted to do it there, really, but they wanted to say, because they got them some news.
Yeah.
And I knew about this, and I could see these two men that I thought was John Tyndall and the other one. And I started screaming, Nazi, this, that, and the others. And I got a whole load of the lads wept up, and we all started shouting and throwing things. Anyway, so they started walking towards me, and I thought, ooh. And all the lads that were behind me suddenly decided that they wanted to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Anyway, it turned out that there were two police officers who were there checking the site in case there was any future disturbance. Anyway, they told me off. And Mr. Clark, one of the history teachers, came into a class that I was in, and said to the teacher who was taking it, he said, "I'd like to tell you a joke. Do you ever hear the one about the schoolboy who thought that the police were fascists?" And he went, "No." He said, "Well, ask him there."
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I thought, oh. And he came up to me and he stuck a socialist worker badge on my school jacket. He said, "I think you might have been right." And so this pushed me to more and more. And I was a terrible agent provocateur. I used to go to these things, whip people up. And I'm going, this is, like I say, honesty is always the best thing. It gave me such a thing of being able to do this, the freedom to do it, because the NF, the far right, there'd usually be 12 of them. And there'd usually be 1,500 anti-Nazi League lads and girls. And also, it was great, dude. You got a coach. There was loads of people there. There was brilliant music played. They'd put a do on a local place like in Ebden Bridge, the Battle of Ebden Bridge.
Yeah.
200 anti-Nazi League and 6 NF 12-year-olds, you know.
Yeah.
But I did that, but then I started taking politics more seriously, and there's stuff about that as well, but that's not whatever. So was it? Yeah. Music. Art. I was so fortunate. I left school with literally nothing, obviously, and then went on to St John's College in Manchester because they was going to stop my payments. Because was it? That was the way of it in those days. Most people were on benefits. It was every club, every band place in Manchester. You had a UB40.
Yeah.
Yeah, people think of red wine. It wasn't. It was your piece of card to say you was unemployed.
How did you end up owning Isadoras? Was that the first club you owned?
Yeah, that's it. Me and Boo Dudley. What's it? I used to. Have you ever heard of a man called John Kennedy and Andy Berry?
Andy Berry, he
Yeah.
was the hairdresser, wasn't he, in the in Hacienda.
Well, I had a great friend called Angela at college. An incredibly attractive, very stylish young woman. And she had a boyfriend, and she also met John Kennedy, who, on the opening night of Berlin, got him and Andy Berry went and met. They got a limousine onto the runway at Manchester Airport by some amazing thing. They were very clever men. Anyway, John really, do you know what? Well, I think, yes, of course he was. John was a gay man, but he liked the idea of this incredibly attractive Angela with him in the height of fashion, this, that and the other.
Yeah.
And he came to a do that I was involved putting on. And Angie's boyfriend looked at this guy who's dressed as Boy George with all makeup on and a thing out the door. He said, "Are you going out with my girlfriend?" And John went, "I am for the time being." And he set about trying to kick the hell out of John. I ran in and stopped. Mainly I stopped to stop Angela's boyfriend getting in trouble, because that's who I knew, because he'd have bloody murdered him. And got a couple of clouts myself for the privilege. But John and Angie got away. I found him later on because I took Angie back to her, and he said, "Darling, thank you very much for that. I'm opening a club called Berlin with a friend of mine, Andrew Perry." He said, "Would you please come down on the opening night?" And what's that? Yeah, of course I will. Anyway, these people were lovely. I've always was it. Obviously, Andrew Perry lives in Australia now. I still occasionally come across his sister Kath.
Yeah.
But absolutely wonderful human beings. Really nice, beautiful humans. And while they had Berlin, I met Malcolm McLaren there. He did a little dance for Malcolm McLaren. That was great.
Yeah.
And he gave me a copy of Buffalo Girls. They went round the outside. Met Sade, buggered up the lights for her.
Sade was there.
Sade, yeah. She played there on a Wednesday. It was ridiculous.
Wow.
It was. John and Andrew could just drag anyone in from anywhere, and they played a strange eclectic music. They played things like Orange Juice and New Order, but then they'd play Style Counts, but then also they'd play something punk, and they'd play the only one, then it'd be this fabulous Berlin-y type mix. And I put my own first shows on there, Gino's Suicide Circus, quid to get in. Which, there's a few things on the Manchester Music Archive, including the Dancing Tarantulas, Stig, Nasty, and I can't remember the last fellow's name. I think it was Bert or something, Bert or Andy or something, I can't remember. Anyway, Berlin was only about 8 foot tall. It was like the Cellar Club.
Yeah.
And they do this dance style where they throw each other about incredibly violently. And they'd also get a rolled up toilet roll with elastic bands around it, soak it in petrol, set fire to it in this club, in this place. So I'd instigated this. And they'd head this burning toilet roll to each other. And I used to put that under the picture of me on the Manchester Music Archive where Animal, that was the other one. Animal said, good God, he was good looking. I didn't know at the time, but he was. Dancing like a madman, and with me in the background trying to charm somebody. I used to look like a lollipop. I had a big afro and a pair of dungarees on. I thought I looked cool at the time.
Yeah.
And so they started letting me put my own stuff on there. Anyway, the ownership of the place seemed to fall out with Andy and John, and replaced them with this fella who did a thing at the Mud Club, a fella called Dave Booth. I made a right fuss the week he was meant to be starting, saying, "No, bang out of order, it should be Andy and it should be John, I'm not coming here anymore, neither are my friends." And my friends all went there immediately and said, Gino, you're missing out on something here. Go and meet this fella Dave Booth. And that's where I met him. I don't know how we're doing for time. Carry on.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I did a couple of bits and pieces with Booth after that. And a lot of people didn't understand some of the things I was doing because I was quite out there with the stuff I did. And that's when the Gore Hounds started. I met one of the Gore Hounds a few months ago. A bunch of people, was it? Very talented people, actually. I wasn't talented. And I said, oh, yes, we just went wild. And Doc Martin, he said, no, we didn't. We worked really hard and you just pounced about the stage doing what you liked. And I was like, yeah, we did, didn't we? And the thing was, with the Gore Hounds gigs, that was one of the first ones. That wasn't one of the first ones, it was one of the bigger ones.
That's
first
Cloud
thing,
9, isn't it?
Cloud 9. First thing, Wild Planet, is Dave Booth.
Yeah.
Ably assisted by Paul Clements.
Yeah.
And Derek Goodwin.
Yeah.
And that was one of the later Gore Hounds gigs when it had all got a bit out of hand. What happened is and it sounds a weird thing. When you're a performer on the stage, there is an unwritten conversation between yourself and the audience, the performer and the audience, that you give them, if you're doing it right, permission to do things. You don't actually say you are allowed to. And was a good performer can hold the room silent, make them laugh, whatever, and none of it's to do with what they're saying or doing. What we could do is give permission for mayhem. And we actively did. There's pictures of us from the with young boys at the time. I'm pouring a bottle of what you call it, Jack Daniels down Doc's neck there. And we gave permission for wildness. And people would turn up for Gore Hounds gigs, not particular to see us, although they couldn't do it without us being there. It's the strangest thing. It became quite a thing. Remember we had Gotham City Surfers on once. They collapsed. Well, their lead singer collapsed on stage, and the ambulance was taking him out from drink. But that was the type of thing, and people danced around it. He was being taken away on a trolley. The Gore Hounds had come on, and I put more and more stuff on. We had 3 girls who used to sing it was called Pussycats on Ice, and Nicole being one of them. They frequently changed.
What year would that have been?
This would have been 80, 82.
Yeah.
And then Booth said, with Alan Mascom, come and do your stuff at Cloud 9. And we sort of ended up doing a bit of a residency there. We was on every couple of months. The true Gore Hound had to involve me and John Doc Martin. And it was insane what we'd do. We'd rehearse for 2 days before and we wouldn't know what we was doing, just play things and stay up all night. And then before we'd go on, we'd do things like, we had a bottle of vodka. I remember Bonzo, the drummer on one of the, it's a shame I can't remember his name properly, Bonzo. He said, I hope I'll be all right getting in here. And I said, what are you talking about? You're in the band here. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I'm 14. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I didn't know you were 14, mate. He said, yeah, I was. Barry Kirkwood's mate he was. I think he's a lorry driver or a bus driver now somewhere. Anyway, he was a brilliant drummer. The force of it, he was insane. We'd get a bottle of vodka and we'd pass it around as glub, 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 in one before we go on stage. We had a lot of deaf people follow us. You'd get across the front of the stage, people with hearing problems just with their heads on the stage.
Yeah.
A lot of street punks that I'm surprised I'm alive. Because they'd pass up bottles of Newcastle Brown to me, and because, as a matter of affection, they'd put whatever medication they had in them. It's all real. The big restaurant guy, they'll come back to me. He used to go around with a little card saying 10p.
Yeah, oh
But
yeah, I think I know you.
And whilst he used to put stuff in it, anyway, be on stage.
Was that the guy who used to stand outside the Ritz?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
He used to go everywhere, and he had a mate who worked in Spa in Wythenshawe who'd taped the Gore Hounds, and he used to play it at full blast in a spa in Wythenshawe somewhere, which was an odd thing for shoppers.
I didn't realise that you and Dave Booth went so far back.
Oh yeah, I used to go to Pips, but I didn't know him then. But we knew people who used to know each other.
Yeah.
On the Venn diagram, so we got to a nodding point.
Yeah.
Anyway, I ended up working in a photographic studio, which I lived in, which was above the venue. So I got to know the lads from 808 State.
Yeah.
At the same time, I used to go and see Andy every day at the Hacienda, and so I got to meet Leroy, who was one of the wonderful human beings in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember me and Leroy scaring the hell out of each other. The studio I worked for had been asked to make an igloo for Christmas in the basement underneath the Gay Traitor. Anyway, it ended up that started off about 10 of us working on it, and ended up just me. And I'd gone in early one Sunday morning, and I'm there working on this igloo, and I hear something clunk. I thought, oh, what's going on? I'm not the only person there. So I'm going around there with a tiny little bit of stick that I'd been mixing some plaster up with, and I can hear something else. Anyway, I go around the corner, and whilst me and Leroy come face to face and both go, ah! I think he was armed with something like a brush, and me with a little mixing stick. Ah! What are you doing? So I was like, yeah, that was brilliant. That.
How did the Isadoras come about then?
Right, what happened was, I was working in the studio. I was doing a painting on the floor, and I had an opening lift. I used to live there as well, oddly enough, with my mate Cass, who was a photographer there. And the lift opened, and Dave Booth came out. And he was looking a bit dishevelled. And he had his very thick glasses on that he hadn't given a wipe. Because I used to sort of like semi-live with Dave.
Yeah.
Because he used to share a flat with a girl who was going out with Caroline.
Yeah.
And I used to be there each night, and so he was in one room, I was in the other, and we'd all meet on a Sunday because he was the only person with a colour telly, and we'd sit round and watch songs of praise and colour. Well, he'd lie in his bed eating kebabs.
Yeah.
But with half of the Manchester scene used to be sat in Dave Booth's bedroom on a Sunday, watching Sunday night telly. Well, he kept kebabs like a sultan in his bed there. Anyway, he looked a bit dishevelled because what he had a thing of, he'd sit up all night listening to music with his headphones on, cross-referencing. That man didn't just know music. Some DJs have a feel for it.
Yeah.
He knew music.
Yeah.
He knew how it was made, why it was made, what it did, what the effect. He was just outstanding. And I'm sat there and I thought, Dave, what are you doing in the place of work at 2 o'clock on a Thursday? He said, have you got a suit? I said, yeah. He said, have you got it with you? I thought, well, yeah, the thing is in that there. Right, I want you to put it on. I've got an idea.
Yeah.
And I said, what? What's the idea? And he said, we're going to get a club. He said, I've just been down to a place called Isadoras in Hanging Ditch. It's had problems. There's no one in it, this, that and the other. They've got this woman there who wouldn't speak to me, and they asked me to leave while I was trying to tell them what I wanted. And I said, well, what do you want? He said, I want to rent it every week
Yeah.
and put on a night of stuff that we'd like.
Yeah.
So I said, well, he said, but they just won't listen to me. And he said, I know they'll listen to you because I can talk.
Yeah.
Put a suit on me, I look the part. So I went, he'd been thrown out of there earlier that day. And I turned up in the afternoon, and this middle-class woman who'd been appointed by some receivers, because the place had gone bust, to look after it.
Yeah.
And I took out my card from my pocket. Grafton Studios, advertising agency. Brandolani, creative director. Oh, hello, hi. Now, what we like to do is rent this place on a Saturday night. We've got another. He said, I've got a wedding in 2 weeks. And it's great, it's great, it's great, it's great. Whilst they constantly wiping my nose, and I pretended that I'd had an accident. I hadn't. But she sort of looked at me and said, oh, this must be somebody from advertising, his nose is running. And I said, yes, we want to put deals on for our clients and promotions and things like that. He said, oh, she said, of course, no problem at all. And whilst talked down on the price, went back, met with Dave, and he went, right, I've got an idea. Now, what I used to do, and it was, you can't do it anymore. This was the most brilliant job in the world, and I don't understand. Some other people didn't like doing it, and they'd throw the leaflets away, leafleting for a cool club.
Yeah.
I used to leaflet for Legend and 42nd Street, as it is now. It's called Playpen.
Did you keep any of them?
Yeah, I've got them. I'll send you pictures of them or whatever. And what's it? I don't understand why anybody didn't like it. For the Playpen, I got paid 20 quid for the Friday night event. Which
That would have been good money then.
Oh, yeah. I'd go out and I'd get rid of 1,000 leaflets. And anybody who said it was a crap job was crazy. I'd go around town. I'd look for people. I'd look for girls who I found attractive. I'm not going to pretend different. And I'd go up to them and I wouldn't just shove a leaflet in their hand. I'd say, hey, look, girls, what's it? This is brilliant. You should go on there, this, that and the other. And what's it? I'll tell you what, it's so brilliant. I'll see you later. Honestly, I promise you. Such anybody's got to be there. I'd lie about who was going to be there. I'd say any famous person that was popular at the time was going to be there that night. Shove them in their hand and say, look, well, if you go down with this now, you get free drinks and all this shit. Then with the lads, was it? I'd sort of like spot out lads that I knew who'd have the same musical interests as me.
Yeah.
And I'd say, that's an MC5 t-shirt. Kick out the jams. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're not going to wear that anywhere, are you? You're going to wear it here tonight at the Playpen, though. Get that in your hand.
Yeah.
So, by the time... And then I'd go to the club that night. I'd know practically everybody in the place.
Yeah.
I'd be getting a couple of drinks for free.
Yeah.
Hanging out in the DJ box with booze.
Yeah.
I wandered around like a king. It was brilliant. I was about 22 at the time. No better way to live. And then I'd go back to stay at the studio, which was above where 808 State
Was you only in your early 20s when you owned Isadoras?
Yeah, 23.
Was you?
Yeah. Booth, I think Booth's 2 years older than me, so he'd have been about 25. Paul and Derek, about a year and a half younger than me. So there was a 5-year gap, in effect, between Derek, who I think was the youngest, and Booth, who was the oldest. But there's no difference in that age.
Yeah. Did Booth play 60s music? Didn't he?
He played 60s music, but he didn't play anything that anyone would think of. The most exciting piece of music to this day to me, because it still makes everything rise inside me, is Cruising by Mr. Blow.
I'm going to have to look for that after.
Because what would happen is, every Saturday night at Isadoras, the actual set of it was one of those things that looked like it all worked by accident, but it didn't.
Yeah.
There was a lot of work in it. Dave, he wasn't a prima donna, but he took everything incredibly seriously.
Yeah.
He never put out a shoddy show, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And he'd get tense and a bit naughty beforehand. Paul Clements and Derek, but mainly Paul. Paul Clements and Derek did the lighting, and they did a work of art with that. And Paul Clements would keep Dave sort of not throwing a strop or anything, because, like I say, Dave Booth was one of my greatest friends, but I never had a problem of turning around to him and saying, Dave, you're being an idiot, which didn't actually help anybody ever.
Yeah.
And he would say things to me that I'm sure, I hope he didn't mean at the time. But Dave made that first ticket with the Hangout on, with Lou on.
Is that the first ticket?
That's the first one. Yeah.
So I'll drop that into the video.
Yeah, and so was it. The plastic sleeves, and I went round the whole of town, everywhere, from Oldham to Withenshaw and everywhere in between.
Yeah.
And I'd go up to wherever I thought was the coolest, and mainly girls, and I'd say, right, this is very secret, this, that, and the other, this is this place. If you like this place, if you like that place, you're going to like this. Anyway, and then, if it was in a pub or something, I'd go over to the lads with another flyer and say, hey, you know, on Saturday, see that little group of girls over there? They're going to the Hangout.
Yeah.
And for the girls, I'd say, well, see, it's free one, this, that, and the other. And what would happen on that first night, it was every night after that, save one. When Booth put Mr. Blow on, it was when the switch went on, the doors opened.
Yeah.
And on the first night, the whole place at the time could hold 300. On the first night we had 120. Second night we had near 200. On that time, the second Saturday. Third Saturday we had to close because they'd booked it out for a wedding.
Yeah.
And Booth was going mad at me about this. He said, this is, it's all ruined, we'll never get another further. I said, no, mate, we will. And I'll tell you why. Because people will turn up and I'll be there. I used to stand outside and say, look, if you want this to come back, you've got to turn up next week. At 7:15 on the third one, there was 200 people queued up outside, and we didn't open till 9. Then after that, there was more and more, and we opened another little bit of it, and then we put another 200 people in, which was wrong.
Yeah.
Then what's it? Eva mentions it in something you left on my floor, was that me and Dave Adlam have got a lot of respect for him, and I think he likes me now, because we didn't see eye to eye at the time.
Yeah.
Because he generally thought, this guy is just You see, I used to do lots of showmanship with it. I'd dress up in ridiculous costumes. I used to always have a riding crop. Everybody got in, but I'd do this whole show of going up and down the queue. My God, you're magnificent, shouting over to one of the bouncers. Let this magnificent fellow in for free. And buy him a drink, diet, and his friend there. Is that your friend or is it your pet?
And would they get a drink?
There would. But it was this whole thing of going up and down the line. Of course, I'd never stop anyone coming in.
Yeah.
Unless they were being an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't get in. But, and we had the first home, and well, our first night, the woman who had the place said, where are your door staff? I can't open without door staff. And I said, they're on their way. Anyway, I didn't have any door staff. So I ran up to Yates's, and there was a lad who worked on the door there I vaguely knew. I said, look, I can give 2 doormen 20 quid a piece for coming in and standing on it. Everyone's booked for tonight. This is, we're here doing our job. He said, we can get you 2 blocks. That'll do it. And then half an hour later, turns up this bloke, Scooby and Andy, Scots they were. One spoke very much like that. And he had a half bottle of whiskey in his pocket and said, hey, you want one, eh? Well, we're getting the money now, won't we, eh? And the other one just made noises.
Yeah.
And she looked, and I said, look, I've got a load of people coming in. She said, are these really? She said, they haven't even got bow ties. She said, hey, I'll bring you a bow tie next week for you. Put it on you as well, then, hey. Oh, God. Anyway, we had Scooby and Andy for a couple of weeks, and then we got some proper one. We had three, it was beautiful, three, Clive, who still worked, I don't know if the press club's still open, he was the head bouncer there, looked like Errol Brown out of Hot Chocolate. Him and two of his mates, three black guys, incredibly, immaculately dressed, stylish, so good looking. Then three squaddies, ex-squaddies. Also, they were the sort of Yahoo squaddies. They'd learnt how to present themselves and dress.
Yeah.
Oh, God, these were the coolest men in the world. And so it was them. We never had a fight. We never had a problem. These men, just by their sheer presence, and they made such a wonderful balance, because they were all tall, big lads. None of them were bruisers or anything, but because they looked like a band themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, so it just went on and on. I remember and then Mr. Haslam comes along, and
Who came along?
Dave Haslam.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he always reminded me of an architect propelling pencil. He was it. We turn up looking like gypsies, tramps and thieves, with me dressed in whatever I'd got from the fancy dress shop that week. But he'd turn up with all this stuff in perfect cases and this, that and the other, and he brought his own heads for the turntables and things. But you see, what he was wanting to play was a music, a complementary dance music to the indie and underground that Dave was playing, and it shook hands beautifully. There's people the people who met there, one from one room and one from another, who ended up getting married and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And what Mr. Haslam, I think he understands now, but didn't at the time, if we'd been like one of those super clubs that had all Bang & Olufsen or Siemens and everything else, and everything worked on time, and he didn't have to wait at the end of the night for his money, he wouldn't have been able to go on and do it, because people want what's already been done somewhere else.
Yeah.
And the Hacienda have got a lot of respect for it, but it wasn't as free and liberal as it thought. It was very confined.
Yeah.
If you DJ'd there, you had to fit in with the pattern of the rest of it. They wanted a prescribed thing.
Yeah.
Which we didn't. And we used to put 800 people in there and have to turn people away at the end of the night because there were just too many people. Turned away Terry Christian once. I didn't like his arrogance. So one of the bouncers came down. He said, "Can we let anybody else in?" I said, "No, we packed as it is." He said, "It's Terry Christian." I said, "I don't give what his religion is. He's not coming in here." But no, it was beautiful. I eventually just walked away from it because that's what I do. All my adventures. I do them once they're done.
Yeah.
You don't keep doing it. But we could have carried on doing Hangout reunion nights forever. I could have made for several years a Lou Reed impersonation thing with, going around with the EPI and just doing covers. Nothing new.
It was amazing while it lasted, wasn't it? I think that's a good point to end the video as well, wasn't it? So I'm just going to hit stop record. Thank you so much,
No
Gino.
problem, no problem at all. We'll talk about some more stuff.
Yeah, we'll do a part 2.
Thank